Okay, it is 5:31 p.m. and I am going to call the Troy City Council General Services Committee to a start. Could we start with the Pledge of Allegiance? Everyone please stand. Adam, why don't you lead us in the pledge?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Right. Thank you. So we'll go ahead with the roll call. Councilmember Gully. Here. Councilmember Cummings. Here. Council President Mantello. And Councilmember December. We are all present. So we are going to get started with the General Services Committee. We do have a public forum first. So I'm going to open up the floor to public forum. We have 6 discussion items on the agenda today related to the Siemens LED Streetlight Peak Performance Agreement, Career Park Ice Rink funding for bus transportation and additional youth services, Seawall Marina Riverfront expansion, Leonard Hospital updates, and community choice aggregation. So I will open up the floor to the public forum. Anyone who would like to speak, please stand up, state your name and address, and you have 5 minutes.
Great, thank you. My name is Jeremy Snyder. My address is 46 Euclid Avenue in Bethlehem and Del Mar, New York. The reason I'm here is because I've been volunteering with the volunteer group Capital District Community Energy, which is working to organize a regional community choice aggregation program. And I understand that's on the agenda tonight.
Yes.
When that comes up, I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you have. In the meantime, I brought a FAQ sheet that I'd be happy to pass out if that would be of help.
That would be great, please. Thank you.
If you could leave one for Deborah, she'll be here.
Thank you.
And TJ will be here too.
Thanks. Okay, seeing no further public comment, we will go ahead and get started. I understand there are some representatives from Siemens, and that is the first item on discussion. So if you'd please, the Deputy Mayor and anyone else who will be presenting,
Sure.
give us a presentation on where we're at with the LED Streetlight Peak Performance Agreement.
Hi. So in front of you, you should have a presentation folder that contains the slides that we're going to kind of review tonight. I have Shad here with me from Siemens. He's been assisting us through this very long process. As you know, probably about 1.5 years ago, we entered into a resolution to kind of work towards this point. We did issue an RFP. We had, I believe, several responses. I'm going to say like upwards to 5 to 7 responses to the RFP. We scored them, we went through them, and ultimately selected Siemens, not only just for their expertise in the matter, but also the ability to finance projects and be able to just wholesale have a lot of experience in this. They've worked with other municipalities in the purchasing of the streetlights, where a lot of the other contenders had a lot of experience in the facility upgrades component. A huge chunk of this was obviously the upgrade of the facilities, of the lighting facilities for us. So we'll go through this between the two of us. We can answer questions. Also included in this packet, and Andy's here tonight as well because he's been a force to reckon, and I'm sure Shad will say that as well too, on the financing side, obviously keeping the taxpayers in mind and the long-term fiscal management of this to make sure that we're delivering the best product we can for the best amount of money that we can also do as well too. So I'll let Shad go through and start the process and the presentation. A lot of what you're going to hear is the projects that we're going to jump into with this in addition to the street lighting. What's beautiful about this process is the savings that we realize from switching over and purchasing our street lights and managing them ourselves. We'll actually be able to take that savings and be able to do some very much needed facility upgrades through a lot of our city-owned facilities. Okay.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Yeah, so today is going to be really reviewing at a high level the investment grade audit that we did as part of the RFQ award that was done. So we want to share with you the findings that we have, the recommended upgrades, and then move forward to whether or not you want to take it forward to resolution here in July. Because we would love to get started and do some of this work before the heating season. So not to bore you, but I just want to make sure everybody's familiar with what the energy performance contracting overview is. It's essentially a construction project paid for by taking your existing utility bill, reducing the energy savings, and paying for that for a capital project. So the nice thing there is it's a no change order savings guaranteed project. You guys actually did one back with us in 2011, and I brought Allison Beagle. She's actually the PM. She managed the previous project, and she's going to be recommended to do the second phase for this as well. So we're excited about that. And then I've got Mark Durant, who does our service work and has been working with the city for a number of years from that component. Any questions on how the EPC works overall? You guys are pretty familiar with it? Good, okay. Just a high level phase one overview back from 2011. These are some of the measures that we did. So we wanted to reiterate some of the things that have already been done. We didn't want to redo them, like building envelope, which is tightening up doors, windows, things like that for infiltration problems. We're not addressing that in the next phase, but we are going to be upgrading your interior lighting as well as your LED street lighting, because those have very good paybacks to pay for other infrastructure needs. So overall, it was a $1.6 million project previously, and you had an annual savings of about $126,000. And we had 0 change orders during that project. We expect to have the same with this next project.
Yeah, Council President.
Quick question, are you working for Schenectady on Sketchan?
We are not working with Schenectady. They're doing their street lighting through a smart city initiative from years ago, and they're actually working with the utility on it. We're very familiar with it, and we actually have talked to them about some of the responsibilities. So.
Are you not?
No, we're working with City of Johnstown is in the midst of doing it. They're leveraging their street lighting savings into infrastructure improvements like this. And we also have Clifton Park locally.
Okay, thanks.
So the actual project today, some of the goals we were targeting here on, if you go to page 5, we were looking to leverage the savings for infrastructure improvements, and we'll kind of outline what that looks like. We really want to interconnect your street lighting, both for safety and also leveraging future technologies. There's a lot of discussion out there over the smart city initiatives. What does that mean? Our goal is to really take the savings and thoughtfully approach how we want the smart city to look, because there's a lot of things we can do, but it's based on when the technology is available, and we really want to be thoughtful in this process. We've developed a roadmap. We want it to be scalable, so we don't head down a path where the city can't turn back with these scalable solutions. So again, strategically looking at this as a group, integrating other partners into this discussion, we would like to bring them to the table and talk about what technologies people are seeing during that implementation piece. And really, it's really to revitalize some of the aging infrastructure. You're going to see some upgrades to failing equipment or struggling equipment, both for aging service issues, but also for efficiency gains. So one of the things I highlighted here is some of the sustainable items. If you look down below, how your project's going to translate back. We would love to be able to promote this to the constituents in the community as we get through this. So we have storyboards we can apply. We have website updates we can provide to the actual emission savings and carbon sequestered dollar amounts.
Just to that point, it would be great if we could connect and invite you to our neighborhood associations to help educate folks on what those things are. That would be great.
Absolutely. Any questions on the phase 2? That point, we'll actually dive into the details of this. If we
Yeah, sure. Why don't you continue?
Okay.
What I'll just say is you can continue your presentation, and if members have questions, we'll bring them up as we go along.
Great. All right. The biggest measure and the most robust measure is really the street lighting upgrade, and it's converting that to LEDs. We've actually started the process of the acquisition, which is the audit, which is probably the most important piece. So the audit's been complete on our side. We're working on reconciling this with the utility. And then once we establish that we've reconciled that, you'll start the acquisition process with the utility, and it'll go through the PSC for review and approval. So right now we've completed that component, and we're in the reconciliation piece right now. We've actually seen success at other municipalities where we've actually units have not been active, or they were knocked down and they were never replaced. So we've actually seen some benefits of the audit where we've been able to extract some value back to what was previously built and not known. So.
And I will just make a point that Councilmember TJ Cummings has joined us.
And
TJ Cummings. Both of us are here. It's been a long day. TJ Kennedy.
I do have a question.
Councilmember Cummings.
Let's see. I did want to check in on the audit. Are you also auditing places that need streetlights, or where and how does it tie into purchasing new streetlights in certain areas?
Yeah, this will be part of the audit piece. So over the summer, we'll work on a number of things. We're going to call it a technology refresh once it comes out of the PSC, because a lot in the technology world is going to change. And there's just some variables that we don't know the cost of. So when we're talking about these 5G applications or some of the smart city initiatives, what we want to do is spend the summer getting the stakeholders from the private sector involved, getting your input on where we should put the new streetlights, if that's known, and we'll evaluate whether or not we can do it. With an unknown, I can't carry it in the cost at this point. What'll happen is we'll either add them in at the discretion and do it financially as an amendment. It's not a change, it'll be an amendment to it. Or if we can absorb the cost in the project through other savings, we can certainly do that. That's a little bit of an unknown at this point.
Great. And then this is maybe more a question for Monica. I know there might have been some funding for some additions in the One Troy project. New streetlight. Is there still streetlights in the One Troy project, or is that?
I think the lighting for the One Troy project is actually for the park,
Oh, it's just at the park.
just for the park,
Okay.
correct. What we are doing though is working with the police department to identify, obviously there's a change in lighting quality going from the sodiums to an actual LED. So once these fixtures are in place and we can kind of do some engineering behind them, we can actually see if there's going to be some voids. We've actually asked the police department, Captain Barker is a part of the conversation as well, in addition to the 5G and the connectivity stuff that we're looking at, but also highlighting areas where we might need a little bit more, like 8th Street is a very dark street, and also coinciding that with maybe like the street tree committee to see if there's things that we need to do, in like other things that we need to do outside of,
Right on top of the trees.
correct, Ferry Street, Congress Street. But also what that allow us to do is to try to determine if there's areas that might need improvements. And that goes back to that. Maybe we might need to add a couple here and there. But I think a lot of that is to determine what the quality of light is actually going to be once these are installed as well.
And that's a question for both of you as well in terms of, I know LEDs can have a much better quality of light and much more consistent quality, less spotty. Is that true?
It can be. So it actually shines down a little more intensity. But what we have are reflectors, refractors that we can put in place. So if you're near a neighborhood, it's really the same quality light. It's just, it looks brighter. It looks more robust. So a lot of the
Cleaner.
feedback we get is, oh, it's too bright. Usually what happens, if you go to a supermarket and been shopping, for a while, it was like, oh my gosh, now nobody complains about it. The biggest thing we recommend for municipalities is communication and also doing pilot areas. So select a neighborhood area that we can implement it. Let everyone know via the website and other areas. Let them go see it and get the viability and buy-in at that point from the.
I mean, we're talking about 4,000. It's not exactly. It's
Yeah.
all of them, right?
No. I'm
We
saying
can actually do
but
blocks.
You do blocks. So we don't want to do them all at once. We'll do a block and have people see it, so buy into it, and then, or we can do it all
We
at
are
once.
doing it all over the next year. I think,
Correct.
right?
Correct.
That's correct.
And in terms of, so I went to a forum with the Lighting Research Center, and I'm sure you're familiar with their research
Yeah.
about what are the big advantages of LEDs, but also you can actually have slightly dimmer light. The main thing you need is consistent light, because the big problem for our eyes is when we're in a bright zone and then there's a dark zone and there can be some height there. It just feels unsafe when you can't see somewhere,
Absolutely.
because your eyes are committed to a good consistent light level, and then there's one spot that's missing that light. And so, from my understanding, with the optics around LEDs, broadly it can cast a more uniform light rather than having a relatively tight spot and then spread out from that. So it's a big improvement right off the bat. Looking forward to that. But then, just making sure that we're thinking about making sure we have full coverage. But then B,
Correct.
are the lights that we're talking about putting in dimmable? Can they be adjustable to the degree that, like, if we find that we actually don't need that level of brightness and the neighborhood might feel just as safe with a consistent level that is not keeping them up at night or whatever else?
Yeah. The lighting controls will have that capability. We defer to the fact that there's a safety component too. We have to make sure we're compliant with traffic rules, things like
No,
that.
of
So we
course,
don't dim it to a point where it's ineffective. So that's part of that rollout piece that but we're dark sky compliant, and we also value
Have you done analysis in terms of what it'll mean for light pollution in the area?
As an overview, we have the GIS map that'll show it. It's really, again, we're dark sky compliant with the technology that we're using. There is going to be some comments from probably neighborhood areas where it's shining in my bedroom, right? So that's when we actually go back and it's on our dime to do that, is make sure it's compliant with the neighborhoods as well. So that will be something that's included in this.
As far as the dimmable technology that you're referring to, a lot of that is implemented under the smart cities piece.
Right, I know you'd been talking about
Correct.
the automatically dim and things like that.
Yeah,
That
so
comes
we
up
can-
at some point.
Yeah.
I guess first I want to make sure, is that something that can be, is that another level of coming back and replacing these, or is that automatically?
We carried a cost to include the basic lighting controls with the expectation that there's going to be a technology
It will
refresh.
be connected to sensors, but they'll be capable of doing it.
Eventually, yes.
Yeah,
Right.
the answer is yes. So, and
Yes.
there's like the nodes on top, they're going to communicate you into that. They're going to communicate at different levels. There's a number of different solutions coming out. It's really, when is that viable and capable? So we carried a cost to ensure we can at least do the basic, and then the refresh is really, we don't see a big delta, but we just don't know we don't know yet on the pricing.
And the lifespan of these bulbs is,
Oh, yeah, 10
20
plus
years.
years. Yeah.
So going back to that lighting equality, right? The lighting equality. So you have to remember, some of these fixtures are 40 years old, right? And they get changed out, and so they're changed at various intervals. So you might have lighting that's really bright and one that just got replaced and one that's really dim. So the fact that we're going to switch all of them over in 4 months, right? So they're all going to be the same quality all at once. So, that's a benefit that we're going to get from that, is that our lighting levels will be similar across the city.
Yeah. Usually with LED lights, the failure occurs in the first 30 days. Otherwise, it typically runs the lifespan. And you don't see that degradation in quality. If you look in here, as fluorescent lights start to deteriorate, that the light quality deteriorates. There's a pretty consistent light level from LED lighting that we see. So if we see any failures, it is on us to replace those. We actually have a 5-year labor and 10-year warranty on parts for these streetlights. So it'll be on our dime to make sure that they run for the 5 years. And then there's a service component to follow after 5 years we'll talk about in the next piece. So.
and just the dimming technology, I assume it does through pulsing basically, but fast enough that we can't see it.
Oh, correct. Yes, correct. Yeah. It's and actually that's another point for your interior lighting too, particularly the police station.
Because I know there are some old LEDs that are, go at 60 hertz and
Yeah.
you can sort of see it.
I actually can give you the answer. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can get you that answer. But the newer technologies don't have that, and the better quality lights don't have that. We actually, the same issue we want to be concerned at for video. If there's video areas, because you'll see that on the videos more so than you see it anywhere else. Our eye won't notice it, but the cameras will. So.
Great, thanks for being cognizant of all
No,
those.
it's great.
Before we continue, can you we don't need to get granular, but just the PSC process, what exactly are they looking for? Can you just give me a quick
Yeah,
overview?
so it's what they're doing is they're validating that what the utility is charging you for the conversion it falls in line with what they would expect. So they're not validating whether or not it makes sense to do it. They all believe it's right to do it. They're just validating the depreciation values you have and what that cost is. Everybody who wants to do it, there doesn't appear to be any concern it won't occur. Is the value that they're charging you for that of right value. So we targeted the police station as one of the buildings, and again, most of this is efficiency improvements or comfort for constituents. So better control over temperatures in the areas, building controls that my team works on, and then interior lighting upgrades. So any questions on any of that equipment? But mostly it's efficiency or it's creature comfort. I hate to say creature comfort, but that's the term we use.
Does that use air source heat pumps, or what's the technology of these?
Mark, do you know if we have is it water source for these? The water source for these
Water source from our main water source. What's the water source?
through the chiller and boilers.
So it's got a condenser unit and a natural gas boiler.
It's a condensing boiler. These are gas-fired units. Yep.
Was there any analysis of? I know we have a lot right behind the police station that's sort of cleaned up recently. Is there room there for geothermal wells? I know the adjacent building did some geothermal there and found some good efficiency.
We didn't do an analysis on geothermal for that solution. At this point, it was more of a like for like to keep the cost in line with what would be able to be affordable under a performance contract. So,
Okay. I mean, to what degree are we buying new equipment here? So it's a new high efficiency boiler.
Yep.
And a new high efficiency condenser unit.
Correct.
Um,
And the new chiller. So you're replacing a 50-ton chiller with a at the bottom. And then, am I answering this correct?
No, I just wanted to make sure. So one of the biggest things too that has come to our attention is the makeup air system. That's in the holding cells, correct?
Correct.
And it's in the holding cells, and it's actually a new code requirement for us that we have to provide 100% makeup fresh air. We don't have that now. So this is some upgrades to the existing facilities that we have to have as well. So we were able to incorporate those changes that we need to incorporate into this program as well. So again, going back to the efficiencies, we're replacing old equipment with new equipment to get greater energy efficiency to be able to lower our utility costs. And some of these things will also have rebates and NYSERDA incentives with them as well too.
but they're still natural gas systems.
Correct.
No, we haven't done any comparative analysis, or have you done it elsewhere? Why is it that you discounted the idea of
Geothermal?
at this setting?
Well, because we don't have currently geothermal in place, and it was really looking at a like for like and the comparison of that. And then also,
Underneath the
Anasha,
guidelines-
I don't know why, we just haven't done that, okay?
I just want to make sure we're not.
I just know the
going
actual
down
cost of geothermal, and that's a little bit exceeds this budget, probably.
Yeah, is the budget we're looking at the 126,000 every year?
No, I'm sorry. That was the phase one. We're going to get to the
Okay.
financials on that here very
Yeah.
shortly on
Yeah.
that component. Good question.
So I think the biggest thing is, making sure the fan coil units are going to get completely upgraded throughout the facility. Some of those don't even work that well, where the 20-ton heat pump, complete lighting LED. I'm sorry?
So they're like window.
Yes,
Yeah.
like the ones that are, when you went to the court, remember when we unveiled the court? Go ahead, Mark.
Just to clarify the heat pumps, the heat pumps are already there. There's a fluid cooler that dumps the extra heat. So this time of year when you're doing more cooling, that needs updating
Right.
and replacement. There's some energy savings to it, but it's going to fail on you anyways. And so let's get it now. And then on the fan coil units, they provide you heat or cooling depending when you need it. They're not heat pumps. The heat's coming from their chill water system or your high efficiency boilers that we're putting in.
So they're
So all your
fan coil
heating,
units are pumping chilled or heated water through them, and then
yes, so they have a fan, a local,
so like
Small blower
sort of like a
fan.
hydronic system, but a little fancy.
yeah, there's hydronic coils in them, so the hot water and chilled water is pumped to them.
Okay.
And then the fan is, we're putting the controls on them we have a wall sensor and it'll operate the valves in the fan to maintain the set points. And most importantly, take you to night setback and optimize the pumping and the flows of that water.
To what degree are we using existing equipment in our police department? Or is it all replaced? It looks like it's for most of the equipment in the police department.
Right. This is mostly
For the-
replaced. For the police station, it's mostly
Like for like,
replaced.
but it's-
Yes,
it's-
correct.
yeah.
Yes, it's reusing your piping, your pipes that transfer the chill water out water.
So using existing
Yes.
plumbing.
Right. Yeah, the infrastructure, right.
Yeah, it's their end of life, those fan coils, and they need to be updated.
Yeah.
So,
And those. Yeah. What would it take to get us a basic comparison to heat pumps? Geothermal to heat
oh,
pumps?
to do geothermal?
If I could just ask you, you're going to be answering, do you
Oh,
speak in
sorry.
front of the mic?
Oh,
Thank you.
These are air source heat pumps basically in their technology, or how do they differ?
they're
in their efficiency?
existing water heat pumps. And the loop, the water is a loop within the building.
Yeah.
It is not using ground source to pick up heat or dump heat. So you have boilers that are in series with that heat pump loop
Yeah.
and cooling and chillers. So it's done
Chillers are
mechanically.
essentially evaporative? How does it get where does it put the heat?
It's air cooled chiller. So it dumps it out. Yes.
It dumps it
It's
into
not
the
it's not a geotherm heat pump system. It's not what you have. It's not what you're converting to. We're just updating your heat, or we're not updating the heat pumps. We're updating the fluid cooler on the heat pumps.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Interesting.
Any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean,
Beyond-
certainly it seems like long-term, if we're looking at cost savings, my understanding is that geothermal is a lot more efficient in terms of cost savings on that long-term. I don't know if that's the case in this particular project. I know developers that are thinking long-term are using it for the cost savings as well as the environmental benefits. So I'm interested in it. I don't know enough about the technology to know why it wasn't considered or how it isn't a good fit for us, but I want to try to understand that.
I see it a lot in new construction where they're putting the geothermal heat pumps in existing building. You don't see it as much, to make it cost. It's got to work. It's got to have the payback. It just within a reasonable
It
period
would
of
need a whole
time.
new plumbing system.
Yes.
It could need
Yeah.
to-
And then the well is extensive studies on the wells.
Right. I mean, we do have an adjacent lot that's empty right now where it could be true. So I'm thinking.
When it comes to the cooling side on the heat pumps, you would need a lot of wells. The heat side, you get heat. So it's not, I don't think it's a project to do that. You're hitting the savings, you're getting updated equipment that needs to be replaced at this point.
And what is the life of this equipment?
Most mechanical equipment is 20 years, 20, 25 years.
So we're going into another.
Assuming it's been maintained.
25 years, I'm not sure, guys. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next improvement measures were about the courthouse. So we were looking at replacing a rooftop unit there. And we only put the voltage in here. It's a little bit of a unique retrofit, but we found one for it. And that's really an energy efficiency gain and lower maintenance. And then we're going to actually make some modifications to supply air in the courthouse, again, giving us better control over managing the comfort of the users, and some LED upgrades, and then integration into the BMS system. In the parking garages, we're going to put an LED lighting there as well. And then,
Staircases.
yeah, exactly. So you can see. And then a significant amount of work went into looking at the fire stations. There's some revitalization there we're trying to do. So we're looking at out of 5 of the 6 buildings, we're looking at the roofs and windows, or we're actually doing that. The 6th building, the Canal Street, is a historical building. So we're actually going to cover the cost of in the project of evaluating what needs to be done and ensure that we get a right size the pricing in that. We just don't know what we don't know there either, what that requirement's going to be. So we will investigate that. And again, that will be an item we'll come back later on and target to see what it actually financially costs the city, determine if we want to do it as a scope amendment.
Council President.
Councilmember Cummings.
Do you have a breakdown of the costs going into Station 1?
I can get it for you. I don't have it handy. I can get it for you. About that, is there concern over the
Well, I know
life
there's
of
been
it?
discussion about replacing that. I don't know about.
Yeah, so we've actually asked Siemens to break out a cost of that. Keep in mind that if it's a leaky roof, it's a leaky roof, and we have to take care of it. So
But
we're looking
replacing
at
all
those
the
things.
windows when we're about to tear it down.
Correct. But we also have to have some sort of an indication. It'll probably take at least a couple years to even determine how that's going to happen. We've had many conversations with the police chief or the fire chief, sorry, Eric, the fire chief on that. In trying to balance that, we still have people who are employed there, so we have to maintain that quality for them as well, but also look at the cost benefit analysis, making sure that we're not dumping money into something that we're not going to get a return on. Siemens is aware of that. They're putting that cost together for us to make sure. But, if we have a leaky roof, we got to fix that, because whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years down the road of us replacing that firehouse, we need to make sure that we have that under control.
Chair. Yes, Councilmember Gully.
I thought at the last meeting, we heard that there were structural concerns with Station 1. Is that going to be addressed? I mean, if we put brand new windows in and we still have structural concerns there, could that damage some of the work that they're putting in or the work they're doing by replacing the roof?
Structural concerns
Yeah,
at
there
the
was some- there were
Lansingburg?
some spots, yeah, there were some spots where they said that the concrete was
Steel was
cracked and the steel in the borderline. I didn't put the roof on the outside, but there was some pictures that were shown for some structural pieces that was.
Structural concerns at
Chief,
Lansingburg?
yeah, could you come into that question?
Well, I mean, if it's structural, we probably wouldn't necessarily include it in the upgrades for energy efficiency, but there are items that from that UFA condition report that you guys got, we did send that to Siemens. So there are going to be things like doors and some other things that we'll have to take care of internally. And then the energy efficiencies, the roofs and stuff like that, we'll handle through this contract as well. But structural?
The biggest concern, some of the concerns, not so much structural that the building is going to fall down,
No, not
but
that.
structural in the point that it is a metal building, and everywhere where the steel on the building touches the ground, there's issues there.
Fracture.
Well, it's kind of decaying. It's rotting from the ground up. All right. As far as the windows goes, I don't think that I don't believe that they have anything suited to go in there that's going to be like a high quality window. The windows that I think they're going to be replacing are basically non-existing at this point. You know, it's you know.
So I mean, what are you?
Hang on 1 second.
I understand. I'm just, the concern is that you put these windows in and then a year later, we see them start to shift and maybe some of the glass shifts.
I don't believe that the building is moving. I don't think. I think whatever window you put in there, it's gonna stay in there.
Okay.
But like the deputy mayor was saying, there's roof leaks. In one particular area, it is over the generator room that houses all of the electrical units, and you know, the public works guys have been fantastic. They get up there, they do what they can, but it's at this point, the roof is it's beyond that.
Sure.
You know, and so I don't believe that what we're speaking of is over the top.
I just thought in the president of the UFA's presentation, he cited some damage there, and I just want to make sure that we're going to address that before we put the work into.
Yes, we're addressing a lot of things, especially like North Street. There's some situations with like the basement and some water. All of those things are being addressed as well too. So it's kind of simultaneous paths of, you know, infrastructure pieces, but then also the energy efficiencies. I will note too, Central Station, and this is kind of a little bit of a, you know, there's a conversation around Central Station and the roof. The roof isn't necessarily leaking at Central Station, but it's at its useful life. So before we have issues with like the insulation underneath and the insulation gets waterlogged, by the time we do get leaks, we're actually going to be proactive and actually do the replacement of the roof now so that we get another 20, 25 years or 30 years out of that roof. It'll be cheaper to do it now before we have issues, before we get waterlogged, because then if we don't, we have to replace all the insulation and everything with that as well. So.
And if we run into a situation where this project starts and we're doing that and you guys determine that you don't want to revitalize that building, we just remove that scope and credit it back to the city. Not a problem.
Determine that we don't want to revitalize it. We just want to make sure.
You may want to
There's no
replace it.
problem.
Right. Well, and I think that's part of that analysis is taking a look at the cost benefit to make sure that what we are going to put into that building, you know, we can get the payback out of it over the next several years while we make the determination of how, where, and when, what we're doing for that station itself. Okay.
Let's see. On the Central Station.
Councilmember Cummings.
Thank you.
I thought people want to know something.
All right, so I just want to make sure we get a breakdown of Station 1
Absolutely.
and understand how what we're putting into it with this process compares to what it would cost to just replace it, et cetera.
Not a problem.
I'm sure it's a fraction of it, but I want to
Correct.
make sure we're getting good benefit on that. On Central Station, is replacing the roof part of this?
Yes. If you look at existing roofs under the second bullet, it gives you all the stations, and then it talks about excluding Canal Street. The windows, the same
Wondering
thing.
Whether we could also do some analysis on that about putting solar on that roof as soon as we redo it. I know generally when you have a new roof, that's a good time to be putting solar on. Can we prep it for solar? Is there anything we can do to make sure that it is ready for that?
Yeah, we can certainly evaluate that. My recommendation is we'll make that, we call it the technology refresh, right? Well, so when we come back about the street lighting component, if there's some additional savings with that, we can do another financial view and include some of these things you're looking for. It's good feedback.
Yeah, it looks like it's a pretty flat roof. It's got a few little terrarium things on top of it. But other than, it seems like it could fit a bunch of solar on the roof of it. So. Is that something that then you'll take forward with the technology review process, or we should look at doing a separate RFP for once the roof is done?
No, we can, well, it's you. As far as the evaluation goes, we can do the evaluation for you and you can determine how you want to do it, either through an amendment to the performance contract or your own RFQ. That's fine.
And certainly Central Station on that, it's got the biggest roof, but I'd say I'd look at all the roofs on that. Any ones that are big and flat. See what if we can connect them. Great.
Any other questions on fire station? The last two items, the DPW buildings, it's the LED lighting upgrades there as well, and then looking to replace the roof of the traffic building. And there's a component that we have as part of this project. You'll see in the energy savings component, the next financial view is really trying to help you with some of the preventative maintenance around electrical services, HVAC mechanic services, building commissioning. So we're going to carry that for about 5 years in the financial model, with the expectation that we could keep it going, or if you, at that time, if the city wanted to hire someone to do that work or do it somewhere else, you could do that. But we just want to show you that utilizing the energy savings for preventative maintenance and repair for items at the city.
So first 5 years is included.
Councilmember Cummings.
Going forward from there, we can.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll make more sense in the next page, actually, the financial view. So if you go to the next page, the way this reads is in the upper left side, the total implementation cost for our component of the project, so all the work that we just talked about, is about $9.9 million worth of work. The next line item down is the client direct pay to National Grid. So that's the cost to acquire it. So that's the number given by National Grid to procure and purchase the lights. That's what really the PSC is going to be reviewing and evaluating. So in total, it's about a $14 million project that you would finance, or Andy's working on the best financing model. But we're seeing actually rates very low. We had a 2.9 rate over 20 years here. So it's a good rate. We're actually doing this today at even less, but we're assuming it's going to be 30 days or so before all this gets resolved and funded. So we wanted to be a little cognizant, but we're seeing down in the 2.85 and less for some accounts right now. So it's a good time to lend.
Can you explain that simple payback years line?
Oh yeah, it's just the cost. It's just a mathematical formula. Just all you're doing is taking the cost of the project with what it pays for itself over 11 years. It's going to pay itself back, and you'll see in the financial model you get positive cash flow throughout. So on the left side, you've got the asset side. So your existing base year cost is what you're paying for utility bills right now, the $620,000. We're going to guarantee, as part of the performance contract, the energy savings of $438,000 equivalent. So that's one component. The other component there in the middle, the associated savings, that's actually what you guys pay annually to National Grid for your streetlights. It's almost $1 million a year. So we show that about 5 years because from National Grid side, they're telling us there's typically escalations every 4 or 5 years. So to be fair, versus doing an escalation every year, we're just managing that every 5 years you would see a price increase for that. So that just helps the cash flow piece. And then there's some construction savings, and Monica has some funding that she has that we can allocate towards this to help buy down the initial cost of the loan or the lease. And so we just put that in there in that bucket. So essentially you get your total assets, which is the benefits of the project, and your payments to the right there. That is the payment you would make to the leasing agency. And at the end of the day, we've carried some ongoing services that we talked about, and you'll see it's a 146 currently, dropping down to 33,000 after that. So that ongoing 33,000 and beyond is really that performance assurance component to ensure we're meeting our guarantees. And we review that with you annually. I've been doing that with the city since I've come on board to ensure we're meeting the metrics that are out there. There's
Councilmember Gully.
What happens if it doesn't reach those savings?
We have to cut you a check for that difference. So when we do this,
So we're protected.
you're protected.
Yeah, thank you.
And the contract will actually show you the calculations and all the detail behind that. So we're trying to be very transparent in these annual meetings and showing what these savings are and how they're calculated and ensuring that they're achieved or not achieved if it's not.
It's better than that.
Yeah, the above that. And our goal in the review is key to us too, is we want to tweak the systems that we can to make sure we're meeting the criteria. So if we see a trend that's going poorly, we want to make sure we're tweaking it so we don't get that negative component. So there's an annual attachment fee that National Grid will still have for this. So all of the wooden poles you have, they're going to require you a real estate charge for that to maintain that. So we showed that in our cash model. It's not part of your lease, but it's shown in the cash model here. And then that annual street lighting maintenance we talked about is 0 for 5 years. And then we actually have a local partner who does this installation work. So we've gotten this pricing for him just so you have an idea of what that cost would be in 5 years. So essentially, you've got what that accumulates to is your net annual benefit column and then your cumulative cash flow. So we look at that cumulative cash flow. It's pretty significant. So the cost of your $14 million project that we're talking about, over 20 years, you're going to make $15 million on top of that. So essentially, it's a total $29 million associated with the savings, with a $14 million project associated with it. So it's very good. And that's one of the things we want to be excited about, is investigating other things down the road, utilizing that savings later on for other initiatives you may have within the city. So we would love to help facilitate and then strategize around that with you. Any questions?
Councilmember Cummings, do you want to say something?
Just wondered if Andy wanted to do a separate discussion of this comparison of his analysis of this.
Yeah. So I'll just do the introductory. So, full disclosure, when we brought this, as you know, Albany actually bonded for their program. So we did, and Siemens brought to the table the financial package here of them doing the financing for us. But then Andy actually reached out to our bond counsel to see, just to make sure we had a comparison and make sure we were actually looking at it. So he can do an overview of what we discovered and why we are going Siemens direction versus a bonding.
So like the Deputy Mayor said, the analysis really that we did was twofold. The first one was bond versus, so this is essentially an installment purchase agreement, a lease purchase agreement. So what we did was we worked with fiscal advisors who, for those who don't know, does all the number work when it comes to bond and ban issuances for the city. What it showed was the model presented from Siemens was significantly cheaper than going the bond resolution route. And we looked at the bond resolution route as immediately issuing long-term debt, which would be a serial bond, or even going the bond anticipation note route, which is short-term, then you convert the long-term. All the options through the analysis given from Siemens was cheaper this way. The second was we looked at different ways for the city to pay it back. Long-term, shorter-term. At the end of the day, what this pro forma is 20 years flat payment, which I think at the end of the day is the best option for the city. Budgetarily, it's in the budget and it's a flat number. What we want to try to avoid, in my opinion, looking at this, is instituting debt that's a wave or it spikes. It creates budget, it becomes difficult to budget in short term. What? Right. So putting a number in the budget that's flat over the 20 years, that's still significantly cheaper, hundreds of thousands of dollars cheaper than going the bond route, is the better option to go. And realistically, we're going to be able to close on Siemens much quicker than we would close on any long-term bond. And to be perfectly honest, I don't trust where long-term bond rates. They're not going to stay where they are. They're going to go back up at some point.
What are the rates at now?
So Siemens is saying 2.9. We're looking at, I can tell you in 2 weeks, we're going to issue serial bonds in 2 weeks, and I can tell you what the interest rate's going to be.
But I imagine it's higher.
Higher than this.
Yeah.
So I don't know if anyone has any other questions about the review we did, or Siemens was very good working with us. I do have to thank them for that, because we asked them to do a lot of things in a short amount of time. So
Thank you, Andy.
Can I just do a wrap up real quick?
Yeah.
So I just wanted to, this is a great opportunity for us to be able to do some much needed improvements throughout the city, answer the call of the residents in the community about switching over to LEDs and trying to get into the 21st century with some of these ideas. But at the end of the day, what it is also about is the most important feature of all of this is the fact that we've built in maintenance, long-term maintenance into this program, and still been able to put it under the savings cap. We've long since said being able to maintain and sustain all of the things that we have now and the things that we're building, and being able to build that into this contract, I think, is probably the most important feature of all of this, in addition to the long-term savings. Also, keep in mind that we are expanding our solar project. We're adding another 2.5 megawatt to the landfill. So there's another additional savings that we'll realize next year as well, too. So we have some tremendous opportunities here, and being able to upgrade these facilities and also our streetlights is a major piece, but also keeping in mind the maintenance is already built in. Okay.
2 questions on that.
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings. One, is there an agreement that 2 megawatt last grandfathered in process to look at these roofs that we're redoing?
It's something we can talk to Monolith about. I know that we've signed the contract in regards to the landfill specifically.
Let that move forward.
Yep, and then we can certainly have a conversation with them.
See whether they have more
Yeah.
capability.
I mean, we had them sign everything over in blood essentially because the,
I know they have
Recent
lots of
history.
time to work on more installations for us.
yeah.
Anyway, and then related to that, I noticed that the traffic building roof is on here, but not the main building DPW roof. What's the status of the main DPW building roof?
The main DPW building roof is relatively new.
Pretty good.
That's the one that has the solar panels on it. So this is the traffic building that sits up against the street. It's got some major leaks in it that have been there for a very long time and they need definitely to be taken care
Oh,
of.
this is the little one up to the street.
Yeah, right off the street.
Yeah.
So that'll be taken care of and then we can go forward and do some changes to there as well too.
Great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for the presentation. We appreciate you being here and doing this work. We'll go ahead and move on to the next discussion item. Freer Park Ice Rink, Troy Albany Youth Hockey. Commissioner Waitman.
Hi, how are you? Thank you. Good to see you guys again. Just we want to give you a quick update on where we're at with the Troy Albany Youth Association, Hockey Association. We are currently in lease negotiations. We're getting to the end of the road. A couple items that are outstanding, but within the next few days, we should be able to come to some sort of resolution. This lease is looking at about a 10-year lease. With upon mutual consent, we can extend it another 5 years or so. Troy Youth is looking to upfit the facility. For example, new chillers, ADA compliant, things of that nature.
Councilmember Gully.
So you're saying that the youth hockey organization is gonna get all the repairs and update
Yes,
that
they're
building?
looking to upfit, upkeep, looking to actually get something going on throughout the year in that facility.
Yes, Council President.
Yeah, the folks from the youth hockey organizations, they've reached out to me a few times, Chuck, and I've asked you, Monica, so it's good to see it moving forward. I know one of their concerns, and I'm really pleased to hear that you're looking at a 10-year, only because one of their concerns was potential financing and funding for some of the upgrades that they want to do.
Exactly.
With a short-term lease, obviously, the bank financing is kind of short in terms of, what they'll be able to finance. So this is good news.
Absolutely.
And so you're looking at a 10-year.
10-year with a possible extension of 5 more years.
Okay. And right now, aren't they renting a chiller?
Yes.
I know they're doing a couple things.
They're renting a chiller,
Okay.
yep.
Okay.
And what's the, you're
Oh,
set.
just when do you expect it? August agenda maybe?
Yes, hopefully all goes well and it should be on the August agenda.
Okay, well, thank you.
I think I'm all set. Gully, Councilmember Gully, did you have anything?
No, I'm good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chuck. Okay, great. All right, discussion item number 3 is funding for the bus transportation and additional youth services. Deputy Mayor.
This is my bucket.
You're up to the next few, so.
Yes. All right. So funding for bus transportation and additional use services. This is in regards to the South Troy Pool. We are working with CBTA. I think we had given that information out before. You will see a budget transfer for the finance agenda on next Thursday, the 11th, $5,000. We are going to purchase to start 100 bus passes for youth 17 years and younger, so that they can actually utilize the bus pass. We'll do a distribution most likely on a Saturday in the neighborhood so that we can actually distribute those bus passes to our youth so that they can utilize the pool. Just also keeping in mind that with use of the pool, there should be an adult if you're under the age of 13. So we're providing the bus passes for the youth, and hopefully that the parents will be there as well too. So that's something new that we're going to be distributing. So you'll see a transfer. If we get rid of if we are able to give out all 100, we do have room for 50 more. We've actually talked to CDTA about doing that as well, but we'll start with the 100 to start. The pool only has a capacity of 240, so we need to be mindful of that as well too. But so we figured this was a good start. I know that it was one of the things that we had talked about earlier on, trying to get transportation for the youth of Lansingburg there. So this is a great opportunity. Liability wise, with the Boys and Girls Club, we talked to them about busing the students down to the facility, but with the requirement of having a parent in place, but then also having the parent and the child on a bus, liability wise for the Boys and Girls Club was a little bit outside of their realm. So we just decided that this was a better option. This will also dovetail nicely with the bus passes that the county is doing and providing for the Grafton State Park as well this year too. So it's a good marriage, and it's a good opportunity for all of our residents to be able to experience the pool and also Grafton State Park. The additional youth services, so we do have youth service, like all of the other youth programming that we have through our budget. We have the summer youth programming as well as the after school programming for CYO and the 2 Boys and Girls Clubs that we pay for out of our budget. You'll see a budget transfer of $10,000. 10,000. I forgot what number I gave them. $10,000 added to that budget. The Boys and Girls Club is going to be operating the pool this year. $60,000 of that budget is going to come directly from the TRF, paid from TRF to the Boys and Girls Club. And then we have $15,000 already built in summer programming for them. So they'll utilize that $15,000. And then this will give them additional $10,000 to actually operate the pools. We expect the operation of the pool to cost anywhere between $80,000 to $100,000 for the summer. So it is a big expenditure, but we're very thankful in the ability that the TRF picked up a majority of that cost. So that will be also on the budget for Thursday as well too. We'll hold it into the budget, and then they'll run through the TRF money first, and then any residual funding that we have at the end of the season will pay through our budget as well.
Yep, I just have a couple questions first, and then we'll go to you. The cost, so the bus passes, I have a quick question. Is this just like a traditional monthly bus pass for CDTA?
So it's July and August. It's actually, so CDTA has a summer bus pass for youth. The cost of it is about $40 for the two months, the season. They're actually giving it to us for a reduced cost so that we can actually do that. So it's a good opportunity for that.
And then with the operations of the youth services, they're going to be providing all operations, lifeguards, training, all those sorts of
Yep, they're going to do swim lessons in the mornings. Patty Brennan, who ran the pool for us before, is actually doing working for the Boys and Girls Club to operate the pool for us, which is great because she's been able to do our emergency action plan. She's been able to do the lifeguard training. She knows the swim team that actually participated in the pool earlier. She's actually working with them to bring them back into the South Troy pool to do their swim program. The swimming lessons in the morning. So it's essentially the same program we had. The benefit is that we're actually running it through the Boys and Girls Club. They have all the lifeguards. They're doing the trainings. And actually what we're doing right now is we're working with the lifeguards that we hired through this process during the special pool open that we have right now at the Boys and Girls Club. So it was a great way to kind of get them into the system and get them working with the Boys and Girls Club as well.
Councilor President.
Yeah. A couple things. Monica, thank you very much, and Mayor, for following up on the bus transportation. That's huge. In terms of the monies that are going toward that, you mentioned July and August. So do you plan to have the pool open in July?
At this point in time, we're looking at later July for the pool to be open. The gutter system has been a majority of the gutter system has been delivered. They're starting to work on the gutter system itself as right now. They've trenched the whole thing so that they can put the new installation in. They're crack filling. They're doing all those things. The liner will come last. The liner is actually the last installation, and then they fill it. So we're on our way. We're moving. We're hopeful there is no rain. That's the biggest thing right now. Yeah, then it can rain all at once, except for then the kids won't be able to swim. So we will open. I know there's been a lot of social media chatter about not having the pool open this year, that it won't be done, but it will be open this year.
Okay. And then regarding the agreement with the Troy Boys and Girls Club. I'd ask the council, I would think, would have to sign off the agreement. There has to be like some contract with
So we do
them.
have a contract. We have a youth services agreement contract that we have prepared and we send over to them. No different than the youth services agreements that we do with the CYO, the Boys and Girls Clubs, the summer programming. What we do, no different than what we do for the NIP programming. We actually enter into an agreement with them to provide services, and those services are done. We actually mirrored it. Schenectady actually has the Boys and Girls Club run their facility. So what we did was we actually got a copy of their contract. We obviously, brought it to our terms and our situation, and then we memorialized it that way. Corporation Council has looked at it, has reviewed it. The Boys and Girls Clubs looked at it, reviewed it. So now we just need to plug in the numbers.
I would feel much more comfortable if the council authorized the mayor to sign that, only because we're not talking like $5,000-$10,000. This is close to, $75K.
15,000 from the city budget.
No, but you're saying.
The TRF is going to pay them directly.
So, okay, so the TRF money is not coming out the TRF money from the budget.
No, it's the TRF
Okay,
money.
so
It's the
they're
additional extra.
paying
Yeah.
On top of what they give us.
Nope. So the $450,000 that's given to the city from the TRF on an annual basis, a portion of that is designated to different things. Some of the things they pay directly for us, like if we have some sort of a programming, they'll actually pay that group directly. And that's that's the agreement that we've had with them. So they'll pay the Boys and Girls Club half up front so that they can operate, and then they'll pay that half at the end. So we can certainly do that. But also keep in mind too, we can certainly do that. I don't have any issues putting it on the agenda for next meeting.
I would feel-
But I will remind you that what we should probably do, and if that is the case, is all of the youth services contracts that we have, including any NIP funding, anything like that, where we expend money out to the neighborhoods or ask for opportunities, it all gets put into a contract. So the VROT group, the Volunteer Recreational of Troy, with the $999 that we give to all the youth teams for all of that stuff under youth services, we should probably generate contracts for all of them.
I think, isn't there an over 5K? I have to take a look at it, but I do believe over 5K that the council has to authorize the mayor to sign. So I'll take a look at that, but I do think
Sure.
that there's a threshold. of
That's fine.
dollar amount.
So we do $21,000 each year for those 3 after-school programs as well too. And what we do is we spell out, and we do that now for those groups as well as for the summer recreation program. We define a contract. We ask for, just similar to what you guys do for the NIP funding.
A resolution 2 years ago when the pools closed. I could have sworn that we passed a resolution for providing those services. I mean, I'll look back, but I would feel more comfortable
fine.
with, the situation. Also, what we're providing now, the public usage of the Troy Boys and Girls Club, the pool,
Mhm.
is that the 10K on top of it for now? Are we paying them additional, or is that?
That'll be a
included?
part of the budget.
Okay.
It'll be a part of the
Part
budget.
of the budget transfer that will get.
It's a part of the
mixed in, or-
total contract.
Gotcha. Okay, very good. Thank you.
Further questions? All right,
Thanks.
can we get some, thank you. Appreciate the work you're doing on that. Can we get some updates on the Seawall Marina and Riverfront?
Yep.
Park expansion?
So just to kind of, it's always easier to be proactive on conversations. And I know we don't meet very often as far as just conversational pieces. So I thought I would take the opportunity to just give you some updates rather than speculation. The seawall, we're about 50% of the contract is completed on the seawall. We do anticipate completion of the full seawall, the main part of the seawall by December. We are working on the north end integration to be able to tie it back. There's the sewer system there, the county sewer system, which we're trying to work around and design around, and a lot of trees in the way. So we're finalizing those. Those plans are about just like 95% done. And then we've already got pricing on them as well too. So we're finalizing that, which is a part of the contract to do engineering for that piece. And what we're working on now is actually integrating some of what you'll see right now, it actually looks like we're taking part of the seawall back out. We had a bad batch of concrete, so we had to take some of the concrete off and then redo all of that. We're getting ready to work around Dinosaur Barbecue. We've had very good conversations with them. We are working during the day. We figured that they'll be able to get lunch directly off the back window. So it'll be, it's been a concert, and it's been a really well orchestrated concert with Dinosaur Barbecue. They have done a great job at just making sure that the impact is as acceptable as possible. And then they're continuing to work. What they're doing now on the southern tier of the section past Monument Square, there will be a new bullnose put on. So what they're doing is starting to remove that cap so that they can put a new cap on and put a new bullnose, just to make sure that the whole process is seamless. We're really trying to make sure that we focus on the aesthetics. It is an 80-year wall. So we want to really make sure that it's not just a concrete blab wall, and that we're actually putting some design components to it. And that goes into the next piece of the Riverfront Park and the marina. As you know, they all integrate together, but funding agencies look at them separately, which is really difficult when you're trying to plan them all together. And we're doing a very good job of that, trying to bring the projects through all the thing. If I know, Council President, you were at the presentation for Riverfront Park North. So we're looking at some of those pieces now. We have a meeting tomorrow where we're integrating and pulling together all the plans and overlaying the plans between the marina, the Riverfront Park, because the marina has work on the land side as well too. So those we're actually planning on letting out probably next week. And we're looking to hopefully be able to let them out together, even though they're separate funding streams. Our hope is that we'll have one contractor that will win the bid, because to try to marry 3 different primes in one work location is going to be kind of difficult. That's our hope, that's our intention. So hopefully through procurement process, we can make sure that goes out. If not, we'll do it the traditional way and hope for the best. We're planning on trying to get it out next week. With the holiday and vacation time, we're working on that. The other piece of it, the marina, in addition to that, we're also working on the Lansingburg component. We're getting pricing on that. That's obviously a separate project. 123rd. Yep. So there was some damage over the winter from the ice. So we're actually getting some pricing on putting new mooring posts up, and then getting and there's also one big large rock that came out of the wall to be able to put that wall back in place. So that's just an update on that. And I know there's been some chatter on the Ingalls Avenue boat launch with some of the driftwood. We are taking the driftwood off of the boat launch twice daily. Joe DiNardo and his crew are doing that. The driftwood that's up on the side was actually, aside from some of the stuff that's been put there, it's actually, a lot of it is left over from the winter, from the ice that got lodged up on the rocks. So we're looking at different ways and maintenance techniques that we can look at for the future of how to better maintain that and be able to use that and kind of be proactive to it. The design of it allows for the driftwood to come in and out just the way that the boat launch sits. So it is an active maintenance piece that we'll have to consider.
Council President.
Monica, and maybe the Army Corps, they're so close, or even Canal Corps, because
Yep.
they're constantly trying to maintain, obviously,
Yeah.
over whatever they might have.
Yeah, Joe DiNardo was going to reach out to Army Corps and talk to them. So, so the marina, Marina and Riverfront Park North. The goal of that is to actually be completed with the land work by the end of this year. So we are actively looking at having a summer on the seawall without construction next year. Yay. We are trying to integrate all of the tour boats at the same time. It's a major dance out on there in the river with so many barges and stuff, but we are trying to maintain that tourism while we're doing it. It's actually a pretty good talking point. The captains and the people like to hear what we're doing. So we're looking forward to a lot of things, and it's actually been opening some doors. So being able to talk to the tour boat companies and the cruise companies about staying here longer, maybe even being able to do some other stuff from this point as a location. So.
Councilmember Cummings.
Just on that, we're leaving them mooring posts. I think that was in the plan. I assume there.
You're talking about the tie-offs. So the tie-offs are going to be left in the park, down on the.
New ones I know they have been tying onto the flag, basically.
That was because of the locations they had to pick during that point in time. They tied off to those. But yeah,
But
No, so those, the actual big tie-offs are going to stay down in the park area where those boats would actually tie up.
okay.
North here, because we have the mitigation wall now, they won't have that, but this will be the proper marina, and then down below we'll have the other.
Gotcha. Let's see. On the seawall work around Dino, where are we at in terms of pedestrian bike access around Dino? Is that
So when the wall is complete, we actually, because of Department of State and the approval that we had to do, because we're going out into the water so far, part of that was recreating public access up on the top side. So there will be a path on the other side of Dinosaur, on the river side of Dinosaur Barbecue. It'll be like a sidewalk.
dismount zone?
It'll be, yeah, it'll be most likely be a dismount zone and then a walk. And then most likely in the winter, we'll shut that down. There will be a fence. The owner of Dinosaur actually had some conversation that he wanted to carry the mitigation wall. It's not in the contract. If you'd like to pay for it, we can certainly look at that. But it's certainly something that we'll have the fence in place, and then that'll be a walk path. But we'll most likely close it off in the winter.
So at this point, the mitigation wall does not continue down there, just a fence.
The mitigation wall ends just north of the bridge. We're building to the 18-foot seawall, this 18-foot level, and that actually marries into where the new marina dockmaster shed is going to be, and then you'll have the amphitheater seating area underneath the under the Green Island Bridge, and then the fence post. There's like a little amphitheater
just
thing
like
area.
a zigzag for the
Yeah,
pedestrian.
because it goes down at a grade there. So it'll be integrated into the design of Riverfront Park North.
Interesting. Cool.
We have some really great lighting stuff we're looking at right now. I'm so excited.
And in terms of, I had just been wondering, I couldn't remember, on top of the mitigation wall, is there a fence that's going to go up on top of the mitigation wall, or is that high enough?
Nope. So the what you see right now is going to actually have a cap on top of it. If you look at Riverfront Park, we have the walls there have a cap on top. We will have a cap on the top of this one as well. We are looking at creating the walk path to extend behind here at Headley and then marry up into the hotel site with that riverfront, the northern section design, so that when we're ready to continue the bike path in a formal fashion rather than just paintings on the street, we'll already have that completed. So that'll be a continuation of Riverfront Park North behind the Headley building and then going up further.
Torn here in terms of, I love being able to lean over the mitigation wall and look down into the river. I think there's something very different about being able to look into a river than look out at a river, and I think it's important. And also concerned that it'll be a great place to walk on top of. What are the design concepts around that?
So it's a built form. It's a 42-inch high that's ADA compliant. So you'll have you'll have the sweeping vista of the Hudson River. We will have to post it, you know what I mean, just like a park, you know what I mean, like no walking on the other side of the wall, like all those other kind of things. But honestly, we have a 6 foot fence down in Riverfront Park that people scale all the time. Just watch Rockin' on the River. So I think a lot of it is education. A lot of it is going to be maintenance with the marina.
There's a 3+ foot spot beyond the wall.
It's not quite 3 feet.
Okay.
It's not like a sidewalk, but it certainly looks like it. Yes.
Okay, that's great.
Okay. And don't forget that just at the current, where the current dockmaster shed was, south to the bridge, that's going to be active marina anyway. So
Where the current dockmaster shed is will be the fueling and bathrooms and showers.
correct. And then the dockmaster shed actually goes on the southern
Okay,
side,
the other side.
Yep.
So they'll be running back and forth.
but they'll be closer to the power that way. So it was a shorter run for power component. And also being able to get in and out to, if we needed to move the dockmaster shed or do something like that, we were able to
go over the
and we had to go over the mitigation wall, which would have made it really wonky as far as a gangplank goes. And also because of the fireboat will be staged under the Green Island Bridge. So that way when you walk up the gangplank, you'll actually be able to go left or right. Right to go to the recreational area and left to go to the public safety area.
Great. You're going to continue to advocate for thinking about the dock house at least as a 6-month a year, if not a year-round welcome center for cars as well. It's already staffed with people that are there telling people about how to enjoy downtown, and it's also a very convenient location for people getting off at 7 or across the Green Island Bridge to come down to that location. It'd be just a couple signs to tell people to go there.
Sure.
Any thoughts about Marina and Welcome Center sort of branding around it? And
Sure, we can
encouraging
certainly take a look at that. Now that hopefully the governor signs the hotel tax for our tourism component, so that is certainly something that we can start exploring.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And related to that, and slightly in conflict with it, I will bring up once again continued interest in single level parking deck accessed only from River Street with no ramps next to Brian's Wake in that city lot. They would sort of double the amount of parking with having access from one side and then access from the bottom deck. I don't know what it would take to dig that area out. I'm sure it would be cheaper than a traditional parking garage because it wouldn't require all the ramping, but it would still, I'm sure, be expensive. But in terms of the benefit, I know we're compromising a significant amount on the promenade to allow for some continued parking behind Dinosaur.
We are losing a few, but not to the degree of what you're thinking, because now that we changed it to a one-way, we're able to actually incorporate, and the council president saw the plan, we're actually able to incorporate angled parking back there now too. So before, when we expanded and made it wider, we actually, we narrowed the width of the actual park,
Right.
and we're able to put in angled parking in the
That's
backs.
what I'm concerned about, just in terms of it, could we gain parking and not do that angled parking so that we can have a full promenade that's really.
Not with the budget we currently have. Unless you would like to bond a few $1 million to build a parking garage, I'm all in.
I mean, this.
And we also have, I mean, part of the piece that you have to remember too is that, you know, this was designed for a riverfront park. It wasn't designed for funding for a parking structure. It's actually, it incorporates the parking area. So it's certainly something that
So
we
it
can
needs to
take a
be
look at.
Different funding process, different.
Yeah, and there's not many
application.
opportunities to fund parking structures. Correct. So I think that it's certainly something we can look at when we look
I'm
at
thinking
the,
about it as part of application for a welcome center or you tie it in with some other stuff and
Sure,
have it be
absolutely.
about tourism, be about getting people into our downtown. I don't know what.
certainly that's something when we look at the implementation program that we're looking at right now with the 4 different areas for the implementation plan for the Green Island Bridge. That is certainly something those people that are on the committee can certainly bring forward. I do know that certainly wouldn't fall on deaf ears. I know that, Ryan's Wake and Gary and all those other people would certainly welcome more parking. I think it's just a balance of what we can afford at this point in time and, what we're able to charge for it.
Yeah, that makes sense. I'm just a little concerned about investing in a compromised promenade. If there's a way that we can get to the full promenade that provides deeper access to that riverfront.
It's still significantly better than where it is right now.
Certainly better than it is now.
Significantly.
What's the timing on actual construction of that area? The
This
promenade?
needs to be completed by the end of the year.
The promenade itself?
Yes.
Oh.
Yes.
Think about it in 20 years.
Well, you can certainly think about it over the next couple of years. I think that's part of what we have to look at. I think that we have to take a look at, if we build parking structures and you have valuable land, that's a valuable piece of land. As the city continues to grow, do you build a parking structure on it where you have expense, or is that become a taxable property in the future if you can incorporate parking in other areas? So I think that's part of the conversation. I do know that when we look at some of those phase 2 parking improvements that we were talking about, we did have Sarah from CHA, the traffic engineer, take a look at finding new parking spaces within the city. Federal Street is one of those areas to kind of take a look at Federal to see if we can actually create parking on both sides of Federal. What it will do is it'll narrow down that crossing so that we can actually get it so it's passable by people in a sufficient amount of time. But also it creates a gateway. So now people can actually park and go to both sides of the city, so to speak, and then be able to provide that connectivity between downtown and the restaurant district and the Headley district. So those are some of the things that we'll be looking at later on in the summer.
Do you have any idea if David Price is still considering a parking garage at that location?
I have not heard any updates from him since then.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Leonard Hospital?
All right, Leonard Hospital.
Yay.
Well, I'd like an overview. My general questions are related to the cost.
Yes, so we have, and you just said that, and I didn't get the dollar amount. Andy, do you have the dollar amounts for the new ones? So we did go out to bid for the construction, or for the remediation and the demolition of the project. Detano and Sons got the demolition aspect it was a little under $300,000. Yeah, a little under $300,000. I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers right in front of me. 245, I think it was. Yeah, 245. And then the original all phase that we originally got the really great pricing from, I think it was like $900 and some $1,000 for the remediation. They ended up backing out. So we went to the second bidder, which was all phase. Not all phase. It was Green Island something. It's not this Green Island, and they were just a little bit higher, but we're still under budget. And we've signed their contract. They're all set to go. We submitted a variance we're working through the variance process with Department of Labor on the asbestos removal. CHA is working with the contractor. We don't expect any issues with that. Provided they're coming into town next week, and provided everything's moving, we plan to start work on the 22nd or the week thereof. So right around the end of the month, we'll start work up there, provided there's no delays with Department of Labor approval or anything like that. So we're moving ahead, and it's looking like it's going to come down.
A couple of years ago, it looked like the reported costs were $2.5 million in demolition. Is that accurate?
We're actually below that.
Below?
Yeah, so we're right about, I think we're right around 1 point, do you remember? 7? I think it's like right around 1.7, 1.8.
There's a healthy contingency there.
Yeah, there's a contingency built into that as well too, just in case. So as soon as we get it down, Chris Wayland is taking a look. We are anticipating going out and doing kind of a community charrette with Lansingburg just to find out what the community is looking to see up there. We all have our thoughts and opinions on what should be there, but we really want to kind of do like we did with Monument Square, is do some sort of a public outreach for that, and then develop an RFP and see what that's going to be. We have the opportunity to do so. It's a beautiful site. It's a great site at the top of the city. Really good amenities around it. So we just really want to make sure we take the right approach and take the community in mind when we design what we're going to do.
Is the remediation already been completed?
No,
In
that's
process?
what's going to start.
Okay.
Yep. That's what'll start at the end of the month.
So remediation first, then demolition,
Correct.
then design and sale.
Yep.
Something.
Something. That is the hope.
Further questions?
And we'll keep everybody informed. I mean, it's going to be kind of a cool project, so we'll keep everybody informed as we move forward. And if there's any other questions that come up on the seawall or the marina or anything like that, just please reach out to us if you have any questions or hear anything and want to clarify. Okay? You're welcome.
Thank you, Monica. So the last piece we have on the agenda is the community choice aggregation. We've had some initial meetings with some folks to get a bit of an update about this, but I know someone was here today. Yes, you brought us these booklets on community choice aggregation. Would you mind just coming up and giving us a general overview of what it is we're looking at here? This is something.
Yeah, if it's all right, Michelle Rogat is also on the same volunteer group as I am, is also joining. She came in a little later than I
And what's the name of the?
So it's Capital District Community Energy.
Okay.
It's a group that's all volunteer that's pushing for a regional CCA program.
Great. And in some of our, there's someone else who might have some information to share. Is that right?
I'm Jill Falchi. I work for the Capital District Regional Planning Commission.
Hi.
We work in parallel with this organization. I also have some handouts if you would like to look at them.
That'd be great. Yeah, thanks. So I know we were having some additional conversation with some folks. It sounds like there are CCAs that are already existing in the capital region. There were some questions about some communities such as Schenectady that are looking to get on board with this. My understanding is 40,000 households is at least the minimum that a CCA is looking for. But can you just give general overview of what it is we're talking about here, and see if we can do a little question and answer?
Do you mind if I?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So this was a program that was allowed by
Do
the.
you mind just putting up the mic a little bit there?
Will do. So this is a relatively new program led by the New York State Public Service Commission several years ago. Since that time, there have been CCAs that have been authorized, and Jill may be able to speak to this as well, 4 that have been authorized around New York State. 2 of them, I believe, have gone operational in the sense that they're supplying electricity to the residents. There's been one that was formed in what we call the Mid-Hudson Valley, but it's not in the capital region itself. What we're trying to do now is formulate a regional CCA among the municipalities in this area, like you said. You mentioned, Schenectady, Albany, Saratoga. There's a group of what we call the 3 towns, where one of which I live in, Bethlehem, New Scotland, Guilderland, and then a few other smaller towns. And the reason that we'd like to do a regional CCA is, like you were mentioning, the 40,000 household threshold. And from what I understand, when they've looked at other CCAs in New York State, they found that 40,000 was sort of the bare minimum that you can really get a good, what a CCA is, and maybe I should have taken a step back. Sorry about that.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. We've got people sometimes listening in at home, so that would be a good thing to define.
Sorry, I should have stepped back on that. So what this is essentially a bulk purchase agreement. Right now, New York State, through the PSC, tells all municipalities, all residents really, that your default electric supplier is National Grid. What this is going to do is allow a bulk purchase where municipalities or a group of municipalities can hire an administrator to go out and then in turn hire a supplier for the municipalities. That supplier that gets hired is then the default supplier for all the residents within those towns. So what's really important to note is that any resident can actually switch out. Just like right now, you can choose to change away from National Grid as your electric supplier. Within a CCA, you can also change out. Another important thing to note is that National Grid would remain the distributor. So they're going to keep maintaining the electric lines. They're going to keep billing you. If there's a problem with an electricity outage, they're responsible.
So in other words, Troy could develop a community choice aggregation, either by ourselves or with groups like Schenectady, Albany, buy or bulk from suppliers, choose an administrator, and then residents could even have that opportunity to opt out. But we would essentially be creating that system based on using clean energy sources such as solar, hydro, and wind.
I think you've got it.
Councilmember Cummings and Gully.
Just that we then be negotiating on behalf of our residents to get a better.
Thank you for the clarification there. Councilmember Gully.
When you say you're negotiating for the residents, if a municipality buys into the program, are the residents automatically put in, or are they requested to join? They have a choice to.
It's an opt-out program, so by default they're in.
Do they have an opt-in, or they automatically put in?
They're automatically in, and then they can choose to leave if they like.
So I'm not.
Second.
So my question is, do you offer any type of guarantee of savings to the residents that's going to show value to them?
Now that's going to be the option for Troy to decide. The way that this generally works is that you would tell the administrator, if you joined the regional CCA, you'd have to work on this jointly with the other municipalities. But this group of municipalities would tell the administrator, we would like to get bids on this type of mix of electricity, this mix of electricity, maybe a third mix. So one mix could be, say, 100% clean, renewable energy. Another mix, you could say, we would like to match National Grid's current rate, but give us as much clean energy as you can. And then some other CCAs, which we're not as much in support of, would say, just give us the cheapest, dirtiest electricity you can find. So then, I'm sorry?
Isn't it all the same in the line? I've never noticed a difference in my electricity.
Exactly.
Whether it was clean or dirty.
That's a fine way to look at it. What another perspective is that what we're trying to achieve is less carbon emissions. And so if this, before I address that, I just want to say one other thing. Once, it's not, you're not pre-agreeing to join any one of these mixers or buy into these. So first the administrator will get bids from potential suppliers. Then each municipality will look at the cost involved with each mix and then decide, do we want in or do we not want in? And also the second choice is which mix do we want to make the default? So say, for example, just hypothetically, Bethlehem, I'm going to personally push my supervisor to sign up for the 100% clean. You guys might be looking more for the the cost savings. So now in terms of getting back to your point of the end user not noticing a difference in electricity, that's correct. However, if say Bethlehem were to choose 100% clean mix, it would be the environmental equivalent of every single house in Bethlehem having solar panels on the roof, like at the snap of your fingers, which would be amazing.
Can I make a
Please.
couple comments?
Please.
That was an excellent overview. I just wanted to clarify that everybody is opted in unless you already have some sort of discount on your electricity bill. So if you are a low-income person and you have some sort of discount and National Grid has that on file, you will not be opted in. The second thing is one of the benefits to this program, and we kind of talked about this earlier, is that there is no variation. So no variation in electricity cost. So you will be signing usually a 2 to 3 year contract that says that my residents will be locked into this rate for 2 years. So obviously there's no guarantee that that rate will save money, but chances are with electricity costs, right now it's fairly low. You'll be locked in at that low rate. The other option is that you can, depending on the administrator you work with, you can either opt out or you can opt up. So if Troy, for example, decides that they want to offer two options, they want to offer a green option and they want to offer a blend, you can say the default is the blend. And if you as a resident want renewable energy, you can opt up into that green option. There's a lot of options depending on which administrator you work with. And I know that I was actually at the New Scotland meeting where they were discussing this with a specific administrator. And there are, I believe, 3 administrators right now that are approved by the Public Service Commission to do this. I'd be happy to give you their information if you would like to hear presentations from them as well. I do. One is MEGA, Municipal Electric and Gas Alliance. Another is Joule Assets. And the other is Good Energy. And the other last thing I was going to say is that if you decide to join an aggregation with these other communities, you don't necessarily need to choose the exact blend, but it will benefit you to do so because of the aggregation.
Councilmember Kennedy.
Fourth option in their power for you, if they agree.
I was not aware that NYPA was an aggregator or an administrator.
They just got some sort of authorization to think about it. They haven't opted into doing that yet.
Oh,
That's another benefit to this being a 1 to 2 year thing. This will continue to evolve.
Yeah.
This space.
Absolutely.
The other point I just wanted to make, obviously, is that what we're talking about considering coming up is a resolution, just sort of exploring this. So I think there's a lot of continued work to be done, and to the degree that the council wants to be involved in researching all the details, we should be. But I also think to the degree we can ask for reports and get there's lots of obviously really passionate and active citizens who are able to help bring this information to us in the next couple months.
Yeah,
Council President.
yeah, thank you, Chairman. I think the first step would be to actually look into the feasibility of even going down that path. I totally agree. A local law that's much more in-depth and obviously would tie our hands into something like this. Could you send us the communities that you mentioned earlier? I'd like to reach out to them and just ask how long have they been in to the CCA?
So the 4 CCAs are listed here.
So
Those are the 4 existing CCAs. And then, as you say, there's a group of other municipalities that are starting to think about working together, basically, is that where we're at?
Exactly.
Yeah, I know it's fairly new, so yeah, go ahead. I'd love to hear the pros and cons. I mean, obviously, it's so new here in New York. I know California's been doing it a while in other states, so
Yeah, I believe it was 2015 the PSC first authorized. Yeah, it's what's that? 2016. So those 4 other CCAs that have been approved by the PSC in New York State, those are in other parts of the state, and that's outside of this National Grid territory. So that's not. Those are not eligible to be joined by the local municipalities. So we're trying to form a new regional CCA right here. Some of them are currently moving forward. As you guys were mentioning, the first step is to create an authorizing law that would allow joining a CCA, and then would be to sign an agreement with
yeah, we're saying
So
do
this is
something, we need
Yeah,
to
they
pay
have-
for it. We're not even going that local law. We're saying,
Well,
let's just look to see if this is something we want to pursue.
And so the only reason I was just mentioning that was simply because the other municipalities I was mentioning, for example, Bethlehem, New Scotland, Guilderland, Saratoga, they are in the process of passing their local authorizing legislation. And they're sort of, as Jill mentioned,
Can I just make a comment on that?
please do.
So you have in front of you right now, I handed out a resolution just to have a conversation about whether the city of Troy wants to talk about this. So that's really the first step to starting this process, is hearing from the other administrators, hearing the pros and cons, not a local law opting people in. And depending which administrator you work with, and actually the one in Bethlehem, New Scotland, and Guilderland, their process is not necessarily to pass that local law adopting CCA right away. They do a huge public outreach effort first. So they tell all the residents, this is what's going to happen. You're going to be getting information from this administrator, and the administrator runs that public outreach in conjunction with the municipality. And then after that education period, that is when they pass the local law enabling CCA. So it is quite a process. And today, I just encourage you to take a look at the resolution that says, hey, we're going to talk about this.
And which part of the process does the actual contracts come in? Is that post
Yeah.
the law?
So it's a very long process, and that's why there are 4 CCAs, and currently one is actually only active. The Westchester Power is the only one that's delivering power through the CCA. So it depends how motivated you are to do this. It can take between 1 and 2 years to actually start this process. And then the last step of the way is going to be putting out to bid, looking for energy supply companies and getting that competitive pricing. So it is a several, usually a 1 to 2 year process, and then you're locking in a contract for 2 to 3 years.
Councilmember Cummings?
Can I actually just voice one thing? I also wear another hat. I'm on Troy's Sustainability Task Force, and we did mention this, and I'm here to show support for the fact that this would really reduce our greenhouse gas emissions as a community if we were able to move forward with this in the future. And it's a easier process for homeowners and residents to just be involved in this as default, instead of having to figure out their own ways of reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. And it's helpful towards our Climate Smart Communities certification.
So in other words, what we've got in front of us is a resolution that expresses an interest in exploring this, which checks off a box for our climate smart initiatives. And then that's the beginning steps of the process. We don't even get into a CCA until further down the road.
That is correct.
And the key part about the automatic opt-in is part of our purchasing power, right? So
Yes.
you want to make sure that you as a municipality can purchase the best rates with the community that you're working with. So you opt in automatically, but then you have that opt-out process where community members can decide or elect to not be a part of it, but we're already in a contract there, and then they can make their own decisions there. Is that
Yep,
generally, okay?
that is correct.
All right, Councilmember Cummings?
So I guess I'd propose to move forward with this, that we make some edits to this. Obviously, I updated to be City of Troy. I think TJ started that already. Yeah, there's at least one spot and it still has Knox, so we'll finalize that. And I assume he already talked to you, but if not, we'll put you on the spot about being the question mark here as the City of Troy's representative to the regional steering committee. But I guess I'd also maybe like to add a resolve explicitly about having the Sustainability Task Force take a role in making recommendations to us on this.
Yeah.
I think that's something they're already interested in doing, and I think it'd be good to have that level of Troy-focused analysis.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I also just wanted to check in with the administration about to what degree, I guess, well, do you want to immediately talk about to what degree you want to be involved, or should we talk about that over the next couple of
What you
days?
can do, when you send this,
Council President.
Mr. Chair, what you can do, what I would suggest, you have a resolution, talk to the administration. Obviously, I'd like Andy involved with this and, Monica, whoever you recommend, they have to be a part of this and get it drafted so it suits Troy. And then send me the legislation, I'll refer it to committee, and we'll get rolling with the resolution. And we'll look into the feasibility, because, I have looked at the pros and cons after you sent the information, Councilmember Kennedy, and there definitely obviously are pros. And, then there's cons too, to ensure that obviously are we getting the greenest, most efficient energy? That's not always the case. So saying that, but I'm fully in favor of exploring it. And if you want to get the legislation drafted, send it to me, I'll send it to committee.
Can we try to do that for the finance?
Yeah, if you guys
If we can do it in the next couple of days.
Jim Caruso to draft it, sure.
Great.
And, Monica, I honestly, you need to be a part of this. Andy, obviously, financial implications, you need to be a part of this. So I would like the resolution to ensure the addition of Andy and whoever Monica suggests of the administration working hand in hand.
So
All I gotta do is invite us.
Okay.
So first we're hearing about it too, so.
Council member Cummings.
One, certainly, it doesn't have direct financial costs to the municipal budget, because it's broader than that. That being said, certainly, we'll continue to be talking about it.
I will let you know that the county does work with Mega.
Yeah.
There's a municipal component to this as well too.
Right, Mega does bulk purchasing for municipal power itself, and I think has good relationships across the state. And my understanding is they're the ones that have been contracted by Bethlehem.
In talks with Bethlehem.
Okay. But it's, of course, it's talking about a much different scale. And it's a scale that, my understanding is the county cannot do a CCA. It has to be done at the lowest level subdivision, which is us in this case. So.
And we don't want to be in the energy business. I certainly don't want us to be in the energy business, but, there definitely is benefits of pursuing and figuring out if we can be a part of a bigger picture.
May
Yes,
I just
please.
have one comment? As you move forward in exploring a regional CCA, I would just encourage you, as you're mentioning, to reach out to the other municipalities. And one big reason for that is we're mentioning the 40,000 household threshold. When people have looked at it, 40,000 is sort of the bare minimum, but really you need to get up to 80,000 to get that the bulk purchasing power.
Right.
So say Troy is in the 20,000 household range and whatever Schenectady is in the mid 20s. We really need to get the whole region working together to really get the best, most clean electricity. And I'm sorry, just one other offer is that this group that we're a member of, Capital District Community Energy, we'd be more than happy to convene a meeting if that would be helpful of the regional.
I think certainly one of the core parts of this is going to be education, just like a lot of the things we do. And again, if there are members of your group that would be able to help with the outreach to our neighborhood associations, those are where we can find the key sort of issues once we get on the ground level. And they're always appreciative of hearing from folks doing this kind of work. So
We're happy to do that.
That would be my recommendation.
Yeah, we're happy to do that.
Great. Further questions? Okay, thank you all very much for that presentation. We will look at this draft resolution and go through the proper channels. I will ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion, Councilmember Gully. Is there a second? Second, Councilmember Cummings. All in favor? Aye. Adjourned.
Well, I was going to ask you, I was talking this morning, and I said, how early Yes,